Hey, so we're starting part 3 now, and you'll notice that I'm switching over to a different view. This is of the screen directly. Reason for that is I'm still in the same place as I have been in the last few videos. But if you were to, so here's the reason for this. Usually the iPad sitting on the table like this, right? Table. There is a camera looking down at it like here, and then I'm sitting right here. My eye line's about there, drawn and stuff. I don't know what that line is. It's an arm. It's supposed to be an arm. So the other main thing with this too is that the brightness on my screen is turned nice and low so that the camera picks up the screen and it's not overwhelming it. So a mixture of these things, the low light, the angle that I'm looking at the screen at, and the screen protector that I have on the screen all contribute to like a very false color image, right? So it's fine for black and white and the drawing that we've been doing, but I do like to switch over to this view where I can see the screen directly and bright so that I get an accurate idea of what colors I'm using. And that's the point that we're at here. This shouldn't be as long as the last few parts. Just two actually quick things that I did in between the last video and this one. So this is a new face that I put together, mainly just new eyes that were bothering me as I was looking at it. And then my previous video before this one was a Forge a Character video where I put together this Griffin character, who I still haven't named yet for the character, but just a little bit of a familiar, animal companion, and it's an Alley-Griffin was the idea. So like kind of all the aspects of an alley cat, the smugness, the kind of wiry, scrappy nature, but also having a set of wings like a bird or a pigeon, which is also kind of a scavenging city bird, so that it could kind of go out and scout for our character when needed. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come in and using this layer that I've created behind our original, I'm going to turn down our original line layer opacity to about 30% or so. And what I'd like to do, this is the point where what you do as far as rendering is completely subjective, right? I mean, there might be something that you're more comfortable with. There might be a certain style that you're better with or that suits the project more. I gravitate around a couple of different styles depending on what the project is, depending on how much time I have. And I'm kind of going to play it fast and loose here. If we get it looking a little bit like the Griffin, great. If not, if there's sort of a different style that ends up happening, that's fine too. And as we go through lighting and all that stuff, it really is up to you and sort of your own eye or the needs of a project, right? So what I'm going to do is come in with one of my brushes here. I'm going to start with a clean brush, and because you're probably interested, I'm going to link some of the brushes that I use in the description of this video. One of them is this George, oh man, I'm forgetting his last name. It's this GVW. He collaborated with one of my mentors, Nicholas Cole, to make a couple of Procreate brushes here down at the bottom. And then Terra, I'm also forgetting the name on, but I'm going to link those too. The Terra brushes are really nice. You can buy some of those on Gumroad. I really recommend them. This Oval Sketch 2 is her brush. Okay, so you come in and you kind of see there's some chalkiness to it, some lightness as you press lightly, and then thicker as you press more. There's kind of an edge to it. There's a bit of a texture, and I really like sketching with this brush. I've gotten really comfortable with it. Between that and this Max Olenicki, I remember his last name, but I'm probably not saying that right. This is a nice brush for like very soft sketching, right? I like both of these brushes because it's something you can use either on the sketchy end of things, right, in the preliminary process to get kind of fast, messy stuff down, but it's also useful to use them kind of later on in the process. And I also like that you can use them kind of big and small. They kind of have a versatility that way. What I did was I was so used to this Oval Sketch brush that I just modified it a little bit to make a clean version where there's no texture, a little bit less tooth, but it's still the same shape. And I just, basically what I did there was I took her original brush, I hit duplicate, and then started making some modifications to it. So I'm going to use that clean brush to make the base silhouette of our character here. Hey there, sorry to interrupt, but this is Brookes from the future after the recording of this video. So here's the deal. I started this real-time character design series with the intent to never time-lapse any portion of the process and instead walk you through and show you things in real time and talk to you about what I'm thinking and what design decisions I'm making. But design decisions are few and far between, if not completely non-existent, over the next hour plus of footage. All I'm doing is this, blocking in the character and the silhouette, using that selection of the silhouette to then block out individual pieces of the character with a very basic rudimentary color palette that I picked out. And really that's it. The really interesting stuff is the rendering, the lighting, the shading, all the stuff that happens after this portion of the footage, so I decided to time-lapse it. If I hadn't, the raw footage for this episode would have been over 3 hours long, and I want to respect your time is the thing. I know that this real-time character design series is an exception to my normal time-lapsed videos, and you're in this because you want to see every step of the process, but I just couldn't do that to you. So we're going to resume now. There's a lot left to see. Here you go. In the course of recording this, I've decided, and you probably just heard a whole spiel about the fact that that was probably sped through because I just realized there was so little to say about the process. And as much as I probably got through all that. Here's the point that we're restarting at is just blocking in these facial features. I'm putting them on the same layer as our instruments. Currently we have an instruments layer, the flute and the crossbow, flute cane. Then we have basically everything but the face, hair, and base purple right down here. That other one named layer 11. And if we hide our main layer, or our line art, we kind of see where we're at. Everything's defined, but it's still flat. And man, I think way back in the first video or something, we were talking about doing this as sort of a flat shaded thing. I just don't think it fits the aesthetic. The aesthetic? That sounded like I said acidic. Aesthetic. Let's come in here, and I'll just tell you kind of what I'm doing. I'm using the same hair color for the eyebrows, obviously. And let's see. I mean, I guess the way that we could do this, there's kind of a few different ways that I tend to go about doing this. We could go with the eye color and fill that in first, and kind of go over as this in the same process. Go over our silhouette, create the right shape, and then we can come back with lashes afterwards and kind of fill out the edge. And it's usually kind of messy, these eyes, because, you're adding in space and subtracting and stuff. It won't be clean immediately. We're just going to have to add some lines and stuff over top, and eventually we'll hit it. That ridge there where the nose is kind of missing. And I'm still not completely sold on what rendering we're going to do. I think it would be appropriate, though, for me to select a slightly redder, slightly darker skin tone and map out that nose and the lips and these ridges above the eyes as well. Okay, let's come back with a hair color again and really thin line down here. Actually, you know what? We'll finish with that. First of all, we need to go to our layer, lock the opacity, come in with like almost the color of this crossbow, and fill in a brown. Yeah, that's a good brown. So we'll make it look nice first, like that. And same here, we're just going to get like a little bit of white on the outer edge. The rest is going to be brown. come back with the white again. This is kind of messy. Like right here maybe. Although that's going to be covered with black anyway, so not a big deal. Cut in here. Uncut in is what I'm talking about. Okay, let's get our hair color again. We'll use the hair color for both the pupil. That's wonky. You might not see it, but we'll do it justice anyway. Use that hair color for both the pupil and the lashes. Keep it nice and simple. We'll come back and add that shine in a second of just pure white kind of reflecting off of the pupil. Okay. Should say the pupil and the iris because it's not a shine on the pupil, it's a shine on the outer surface of the eyeball, which is non-discriminatory, right? It's everything on the eye at that point. Okay, looks pretty good. It'd be nice to do this a little bit. Come back with pure white like that. Come over both. Light coming from the same direction or reflecting in the same place with both of those. That's pretty okay. I feel like I'm not seeing the brown much. Let's add to it over here. Okay, and now we're gonna maybe unlock the layer and just add our quick little black line here. It's already there with the iris, or pupil rather. Come around here, wrap around what we have, and again we're looking to overlap this line here. But maybe I'll use the skin tone on the edge of the eye just to delineate from what could be either makeup or mascara or just yeah, little makeup wingtip type thing. Come over this. This is looking really pixelated. Like I almost wonder if this is the right. This is the same size document that I usually used. It'd be nice to be a little bit bigger, especially with something on the eyes. But oh well, this is where we're at. It also isn't really the resolution, actually. That's what I'm remembering. It's the brush. You can do something like this in here, and I guess it's sort of an illusion, right? It's aliasing via the translucency of part of that. So okay, coming under here. And let's decide on that skin tone. Let's go with like that. Yeah, a little shift, a little shift. How does that look? Does that look weird? Might be. If we just kind of add a little. Whoop. Okay. Nose bridge. Nose end. Nostril. It's a nice shape there. Okay. And about the same, at least one of these. Let's do the top lip in this color, and we'll choose a different for the bottom. And I'm not really sure which will look better, lighter or darker. Maybe about there. That's already the skin tone, basically. Let's see what this looks like from afar. She's not going to have makeup, really, right? Not really possible. Too gray. Okay. It'll be easier to just redo this. Okay. Let's come in with our pink. Let's actually go a little bit darker. What do you think of that? And saturate enough so that we're not falling in the same trap. Clean line. Clean line fill. Might just tighten this lip up just a little bit in the back. I want them to meet. Yikes, what am I doing? I think you just need this to overlap, then we're good. Let's flip. Turn off our line art. Yikes, don't like it. No, sir. Tweak Town. Okay, this comes back up. This comes under. And turn opacity back on. I guess we're going to go lighter with the bottom lip. We might actually add the little, keep that little line, see that how that looks aesthetically. Uh-oh. Gotta erase this. Now, one strategy that I like to use as sort of like a quick, it's a way to get some definition in, is to duplicate the base color that I have and then darken that a bit, increase the saturation a little bit, otherwise you start to wash out as you darken that layer, and erase away from that over top of the lighter, so you start to get a little bit of like shadow and like shape information from the flats. So I'd like to do that. Everything is kind of on separate layers. I just want to like, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know that we're allowed basically like 13 layers with Procreate. I went through all these earlier, these sketches, and just kind of combined them. So I'd like to hold on to them. If need be, I can either delete stuff or port what we have over into a new document to kind of save some of this old stuff. So first of all, let's see. We've got our, let's move our lady over, our Goodwyn. So we've got this, and our base here. I'm pretty sure at this point, because we've done all the defining, we can merge these guys down. So this is all one, and it's convenient, I think, to leave this off, but I'm kind of wondering this part back here. Yeah, we can just merge it. It's not a huge deal. Okay, so now like all of our color information is going to come, like we can duplicate this guy, this layer 9, bring it up over top of our crossbow and our flute, and then duplicate the instrument layers there and merge down. And now we can still like select, right? If we can still select these things separately. The face is also there separately. But now we take one big version of everything, basically the flats with all the information. We can drop the brightness down a little bit, increase the saturation a little bit. And now this isn't like our final, we go in here. Let's grab our oval sketch, get a little bit of grain with our shadow, right? We don't want pristine shadows. And now as we cut away, right, we get the original color underneath our shadow. And this isn't, again, it's not like the end all rendering, but it's something. And it's nice kind of in a hurry. It's a nice way to get some things out. Like, so let's take these bandage legs first. We do need to establish kind of our light source, and the best way to do that is look at our already rendered character, which is this Griffin, our Alley-Griffin, and we see, go to this layer here, we see that like, whoa, that's right, I still had that selected. We see that the light is kind of coming from this direction, right? Most accurately, it'd be like this is our light. Like a little bit. Like from the side, from the left side here, but just a little bit like toward us, right? So rotate it a bit. If that was sort of a ring around our area, you know, it's not perfectly 9 o'clock, it's more like 7 o'clock, right? That makes some sense. Okay, let's get rid of all those little dashes. So we'll remember that. Let's keep this in here. Because it's the same for our character here. That's our light. So our shadow is going to come on the other side of it. So let's see. We can come in here. A technique that's utilized by portrait painters mostly, that is just a way to kind of cheat the complexion of the face. And it's not to be taken really literally. This is, first I'm laying down like some really bright red, but I'm going to eventually reduce the opacity and bring this down as just like kind of an adjustment layer over top, very subtly. It's something that oil painters and portrait artists like are just kind of adding a slight tint of these things, but I'm kind of working backwards. So there's a reason for it. Generally, so there's a lot more blood, right, in sort of this main mask of the face, the cheeks, the things that we kind of associate with blushing, and less blood cells and capillaries and things in the forehead, which is, you kind of get this little yellow. Oh no, we're on the wrong layer. Okay, start over. Here's a tip that's utilized by portrait painters. It's just a bit of I know it looks radical at the moment. I'm laying this severe red on. We will pretty much immediately reduce the opacity on this, make it into a kind of a blending layer so that it's very subtly present here. But this is a sort of a cheat for the complexion of the face that you'll see a lot of portrait painters use. And it's just kind of, it's so the main idea here being that this sort of central area of the face is where the most blood vessels and capillaries are. And so around the eyes and the cheeks, the areas that we sort of associate the most with blushing, we'll kind of erase away from the sort of muzzle area here. And then as you grow toward the forehead, not only is there sort of more exposure to light, but there's less blood vessels up here. And the third range down below is typically colored, the color most predominantly used there is blue, specifically with male portraits because you have that tiny hint of stubble growing in. And so it kind of, that either dark brown or gray kind of contrasts with the skin tone as you get down there. Less so with female characters, obviously, but also you're thinking about the fact that, okay, you've got a lot of light up here, and sort of as you go down, there's less light. And so it's kind of a little bit of a stylization too, to kind of trend toward that blue. Maybe for her, because she's female, we'll do just a bit of purple. And this is meant to be just like, a realist painter or a traditional painter is going to hint at and mix in just a tiny bit of these colors to their skin tone, and we're going to do the same. We're just going about it basically backwards, right? We'll blend this over into the edge. I've been using a smudge tool just a tiny, tiny bit ever since I've been doing a lot more charcoal in real life. The idea of just like taking your finger and smudging is, I'm finally like understanding that a little bit more. All right, so we'll select our base, which is the layer here. Looks so odd, like a Mardi Gras mask or something. We're gonna Gaussian blur just a little bit, right, so that we don't have too much of an edge with any of those areas. We're selected on the outside, right? We'll come in here and let's deselect. Let's anywhere it's extending out over the hair, or this piece here we can cut away, and we'll just, like this was never here, just kind of slowly blend it over. Okay, and it's just a really subtle thing, but I was looking at this face, it needed some redness for one thing, and maybe we'll add a little bit more, sort of like really overt cheek redness and stuff as we go. But I thought I'd just kind of share that technique a little bit. I've done it really briefly before. Okay, so yeah, you've been doubting me the entire time you see this, but now look at that. That's not too bad, right? That kind of starts mimicking the face, and we haven't even started like sculpting out the actual way that the light is hitting the face, right? We're just doing this really subtly. Let's see, could we do sort of a pale blue over some of this without it looking like the stubble, just because the purple is an experimentation thing. Not digging a ton. Yeah, okay. So that's that idea. Maybe we can use this smudge to kind of gradually bring things over and fade in. Cool. I think that looks good. Tiny addition there. I'm going to use the soft brush to cut away on the bottom half mostly. So I think that's less important. Yeah, the blue this is sort of the issue, right? Maybe we can just go back to purple. And maybe, that's what I'll do is bring down the opacity of this brush so it's very subtle there. Yeah, okay. We'll leave this where it is. Let's kind of maybe try it as like an overlay layer. That's kind of nice, the overlay. Yeah, either way with these. Okay, soft light. So we'll come in with that way it's not a normal that's casting. It'll change whatever is below it. Basically the same thing though as that really low opacity. Let's go back to when we're using this oval sketch, there's a little bit of texture to the edge, but it's a very hard erase versus the shader pastel that we have that's going to be just a lot more smooth edged, right? Okay. So that's something to keep in mind as we start cutting in the light. So where did our light source go? Let's bring it back over here just as a little reminder as we go, so that I can just kind of visualize that. And so now we can actually, we're actually lighting the forehead here by cutting away some pieces of it and reflecting that light. I'll use the shader on her face just because you don't want too many hard edges on a young face, lest they start to look a bit wrinkled. That's sort of the constant battle with just young characters and female characters, but more predominantly with young female characters as profiling as that sounds, it just ends up that way. Doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't design some more interesting looking characters. So we're coming down the bridge of the nose. I think what we'll do here is, because the nose recedes so much into the face, we'll just kind of light this end here as though this is the only bit that's kind of coming back out, right? We continue with the cheeks as we kind of already did. Cutting out sort of a general cheek shape. And the kind of main thing we don't want to do is let's taper into the nose a bit. Cut out on top of the eye, just because we've got a little bit of wrinkling there. Man, what's going on? Like, it looks so different. Looks like it's too subtle or something, but we're okay. Already, like, adding the red has helped. See, that's, now that you've looked at it for a while, you see the difference there. Adding the blood to the face. And again, just subtle tapering. We'll kind of bring this down and over. And if we insinuate sort of a harsh line right here, that looks like a wrinkle, but if it's nice and soft, it sort of just does what a lip does. We can pretend that there's a little bit of a shadow right under the nose and then some light on above the lip. Over here, right? This is very soft shading, and I'm not going to do it on all of the character. The face is so tricky, and I'm afraid. No, I am wary, basically. I've done this before where you do a lot of really hard rendering like this, and then, you eventually have to soften it down a ton. And the face on our character is it looks a little different than the rest of the character anyway, because there's kind of a lot of hard lines and definition already. So we don't have to, there's no forms that we don't see without shading and cutting them out, right? That's a little too intense right now that we've kind of got both. We'll see how that looks. I'll kind of bounce back and forth, especially because there's going to be additional layers that we're going to put over top of these. So we'll see how things go. All right, let's take our multiply layer away. Okay, so now let's jump back over to our overall sketch. We have a line here for the neck, which should, we should be cutting down and over like this. I honestly think that our top layer is not dark enough. Or not saturated enough, at the very least. Let's go back to our hue saturation balance. There we go. Increase that a little bit. Darken that just a tad, like that. And bring this over. Cut down. Okay. Now we have what is essentially, we'd like to create like a little tabletop on the top of this collar. Like so. And then just a slight seam and jump as we come down here. And we can start informing texture of the garment. Like we could kind of get like a satin vibe, right? If we kind of did things right and we allowed ourselves not to just, we didn't just erase away and make lighter, but when we have a shimmer on satin that like almost looks more saturated sometimes than the base color, you start to get that really satin silky look. Okay. Let's up our brush size a little bit just because we might be here forever going this small and meticulous. And it's kind of that same thing where it's nice to start out big and work your way down, even if you're subtracting. Let's go to our shoulder here. And if we leave just a tiny edge, let me show you here. If we leave just a tiny edge at the end here, or rather we don't erase all the way to the edge and we just have a little darkness, it insinuates a roundness to the object and a softness to it, a lack of glossiness or specularity, which is exactly what this rag stuff is. Okay, we're still honoring our light source. Still looking pretty desaturated. I think one of the main things is that we'll try and work on is a sort of a fix to the amount of brown. Voice cracking. That is a sign of sleep deprivation for me. Yikes. Better hit that hay. Okay. So yeah, let's come in here. We want consistency also with our rendering, because as soon as you kind of start something to look one way, you're going to have to continue. And here I am looking at sort of where our line ends for the next layer above, and then dropping down a sort of shadow area being cast on the layer beneath, and then cutting away the light from there, and then allowing that light to taper off a bit. If that makes sense. I'm going to keep adjusting here. I might, there's always a chance that I'll scrap everything with something like this. But it looks pretty okay right now. I almost feel like the bottom layer is too desaturated, like let's try that. Let's go to our original bottom layer and sort of like, what are we working with there? We better drop this now that we did that, but it could help a bit. I'm going to come back here, make sure this isn't, yeah, it's not locked. We've got our shader. I'm just going to come back in and like at half opacity of what we just had, work some of this color back in. Don't want to go too crazy on the exposure of light. And shader here. Yeah. Something about this I really don't like. Sort of figure it out as we go. I'm going to take away my line art here just to recheck. Maybe that's maybe it's just not meant to sort of be detailed with that oval sketch. Maybe I should just kind of proceed with really soft shading. Maybe that's kind of how this is going to go. I mean, we've already jumped and progressed up from that sort of Dire Knots flat shade style. And I don't remember why. But yeah, this is still a certain amount because we have a lot of our information, right? We did the segmenting work. So now it's kind of just up to this soft stuff. We're not looking to, we're never pretending that this is a painted character. Just a flat illustration style. Okay, and let's kind of come back, double back on what I just did. Add some opacity back. The half erasing is helping here, except for this area. I'm gonna kind of define another front piece to this. And anytime I can add dimension in an existing segment like that, it's going to help us a lot, because it doesn't look like we're just going like, like the more we show that, the better. Okay. And I don't see areas that we could otherwise, but something to keep in mind. Actually, yeah, let's keep it going up here. Right? And then we just kind of come back and hit that line on the other end. A little bit of ambient occlusion up here, which is kind of just the idea of shadows that occur from things being really close together. Like you hold your two fingers, your tip of your thumb to the tip of your forefinger, and sort of the shadow that creates by not allowing other light in is ambient occlusion in its most extreme sense. Okay, considering the fact that our rags are going to block some of this looks good. We'll erase here. And I'm happy you guys can watch this stuff instead of just the complete and total tedium that was blocking out our color segments. What I'm doing here is I'm hitting the outside of our most shaded part with some rim. And this is something that we could also do later on and might still, if this isn't intense enough. But basically the idea is the same as over here. We're not, going as extreme as possible with light and dark. We're giving some softness over. And that's the wrong, let's grab the purple and put it in there. Although I kind of like the look of that. We'll just soften it a bit. Okay. And let's bring this back for our hand. Let's go hard, at least at first, with the hand, because this is made up of pieces that we don't fully see in the flat yet. So this is coming out over here. I'll need to turn the line art off to kind of audit how this is actually going. I'm just running a little bit on autopilot of how I think this should be rendered, considering the light from where it's coming. We want lots of little wrinkles, creases, areas where the fingers are bending, the knuckles are coming together. And we can come across, let's add some back here. Just the back side of that knuckle, right? And then erase back. Okay. Same here. And even before turning the line art off, I can see areas where I'm just keeping too much shadow, right? Doesn't have to be crazy. Just smooth it out a bit, take this out, and it's not bad. Ooh. Yeah, see areas like this, it's too needless. Okay. This part is kind of under the shadow of the sleeve, so that's good. Not bad, you know. Done better skin, done better hands. Okay, now our ruffle up here, and this is something again that we're going to add some maybe lace detail to if we have some time. Okay, so we've got this bit here for cloth. Cloth is interesting. It's just a lot of light and shadow. It's a good thing to do cloth studies, realistic cloth studies. And so we see this kind of come back up, right? Our shadow is going to be everything on this sort of, this plane. Everything that's kind of bent so that it's not facing our light source coming from this direction is going to be darker. And kind of cresting over top here is going to be light. Okay, we can also like take our lasso here and erase bits from it. And then now when we take it away, there's a hard edge right there. It's subtle, but a hard edge for a layer that's in front of it, piece that's in front of it. Okay, the edges here. Nice. Okay. That's pretty good, Ruffle. Something that we're kind of missing here still. We're not like done, again, as I've said many times. We're simply like adding specific definition to each, kind of like the way that our colors were local colors. I'm not sure if I talked about that while we were doing the time lapse or not. But just like the normal color, we're sort of showing like how the material is reacting on an individual basis compared to other sections of that same material, which is really kind of semantic-y. But we're going to get into some more overall lighting that will kind of be more helpful and generalized. And when that kind of starts to average out over top of the character, it'll make a lot of these individual pieces being rendered look better, hopefully, if we do it right. Because it's not so much a focus of like, it's not like a depth map where closer to us is light and farther from us is dark. There'll be some more evening out. Okay, let's go specular on our flute, even though we might add a bit of rust to it and stuff. Let's yeah, like this, like really hatchy. And same with this, we can erase away. Let's go a little bit soft. And erase our edge. Right, with metal, really approximately, we've got an edge that's showing light as well. And kind of completing this up here. Go back to just a little bit more rough, hard-edged rendering. Come in and forget that we went over this. And then render this individually, like that. Okay, and then sort of a wrap around this edge. Oh, that's bigger than I thought. Edge of this lens. And we can do the same thing where we're sort of adding a tiny, like we did on the purple. Just like a tiny line that's showing a separate face. Can go a long way with definition here. Like that. Let's go. Let's erase a good portion of this. I think with our lens, if we remember and have time, we'll come back with some yellow definition to this lens, because right now green with a lighter green behind it is sort of a very washed out look. Let's shade these buttons, man. The like trial and error of rendering, especially if it's kind of something new, the thing that you're rendering or making is a little bit on the new side. You know, there's a lot of experimentation going on here. A lot of possible wrong answers that I might even be committing right now, and I'll just kind of figure it out as I go. Again, this is something that we can adjust the opacity on. The layer that we're working on, we can adjust the entire opacity of, the saturation. Just kind of nice, a good way to balance out the colors or our shadow overall. This is good, having like shadow that's behind some of the cast stuff. Part of our current problem is there are areas that just are not dark enough, right? We just have neutral and light, but no really dark, even though our layer over top is kind of dark. We'll fix that soon with some contrast and overlay and multiply. And those will be more general. Those will kind of go over everything, basically. Over top of. Okay, now we're on to these little plates that I want to make sure here that are... Make sure that they are shown as kind of disc-like, right? That they're kind of extruded. Let's fill this in. Okay. And erase a bit. How's that look? Is that completely opposite? Yes. That's opposite of what I wanted. Let me go like this. as much as I can. A little messy. And erase here. Okay, don't worry too much about this guy. This part of the rendering always kind of looks like a bit of a mess until it's all coming together, because there's a certain illusion that you're trying to create. And when there's like constantly other pieces that are unfinished, it's like easy to go, well, that's fake. There's no consistency across that. I'm out of the illusion. Okay. That's not bad. I think this might be a little too extreme. I'll cut that back. And same here. We want it to be like a flat object that's extruded a bit. And so we just see these faces. Like that. And cut this over. And just a little bit of, see, the kind of key thing is adding just a bit of shadow in between your planes. You know, you can kind of go just as dark with some of these. Okay. Looks kind of cool. Let's flip it back. Yeah, looks nice. Looks good on my other screen. Color, again, the reason that we're doing it sort of without filming the screen is that it's really vital that I'm looking at it head on with full lightness. Full screen brightness, rather. Okay, selecting this. And if I just allow the brush to kind of get on the edge there, but I don't erase as much of it as I do the other stuff, then I come in here, fill this back in with a dark color. And let go. Okay. And same here. Let's make this hard edge right there. I like the idea of the flute kind of being, that's too much. Just, this is the important part. Wrap down. Just this hard edge here, just a little bit of the button. Again, the buttons are kind of the same thing, where it's extruded flat pieces, where you're lighting the top and keeping the sides of the disc shaded when you can. Let's take my safety off. Well, it's kind of more of an obscuring agent, our line work. Most of the time, especially now that we've defined so much, but it's good to have on sometimes. Just make sure we get it off. Okay, so almost all the way down, we haven't hit sort of any of our burlap and bandage other than that shoulder. And kind of keep it lighter as we get away from the body. As long as it's not, doing this thing where we're like sculpting our shadow around this object that's in front, because that can look kind of bad. Maybe we'll just add kind of a ripple through, like so. Okay. And we just still have the hair left to do, which is kind of its own beast. Let's very spherical, cylindrical object, this skirt. We do want to kind of get up close to the edges of these things, because it's not, you know, it's something that's being lit and not obscured by this arm and the flute in front. We'll do that. Let me just do all that real quick. Let's cut real close so that we don't get that outline impression or the lazy impression of the hand shading so much. Although we could cast a bit of a shadow with it, but we won't. We'll consider it too far away. Also remembering too that a lot of these objects are not affected so drastically by light the way that, you know, metal is. In this case, we've kind of got the same material specularity for our flute as we have with our skirt at this point. So that's something you want to avoid. We can kind of taper down a sort of triangle of shade as more of the torso is occluding the light source. You can also have multiple light sources. A single spotlight is sometimes a little sterile. That's why it's nice to do some rim lighting of a different color. Maybe with her like a blue. And because we segmented this skirt out, it's a lot easier to just add shadow because we're flavoring it, we're not defining it, if that makes sense. Let's come back with this and come across. Let's get more sort of exact with the layer above, like this. Don't like how that is touching, but smooth it down. So now it looks like there's a sort of a shadow with that over top of the one underneath. Blend that shadow. And yeah, let's just do a tiny bit here. And over here. Okay. Blend that. And basically what we have left is a little bit of this, which we can do the same kind of disc treatment, like flat face and shaded edges. All one piece like this. Easier when it's stuck behind. And this is another reason to kind of shade each, or rather block out each thing on separate layers, because you then have more control of edges and things where materials are overlapping and objects are overlapping. Something like that, right? And again, because this is very like localized shadow information. So like under the skirt here is obviously darker than like up on the face, but we're not there yet. Like that's our next step. That's why it looks kind of weird and flat right now. So don't worry, we're progressing. We'll get there. Okay, our shader brush. Let's go just across generally some of these bandages. That might be too high. We'll wait until about here. Just a little bit of light. A little bit of light there. A little bit of light there. Some coming back here. Mainly just this one line down the leg. Something like this, where it's starting to get closer out to the edge. Mimic the outer edge that way. It's here. We could even let's see. Let's erase like too close to the edge, right? And then come back with a very hard line and draw on top of these. We'll see what it looks like without our line layer again. And at this point we're wrapping the other direction. or kind of convex. Okay, and then each little individual toe. Another thing we're adding is a lot of dirt and grime eventually, so these toes will not be so pristine looking, like they just came out of a chlorinated pool. A chlorinated pool. I don't know why that's important. Okay, we're just remembering, we're kind of keeping in mind that there's a little bit of a cast shadow across each of these. Not going crazy there with the toe lighting, because that's just insane. And then this leg here is going to be a little bit less. Like if we do this, here's a different idea, which we might kind of go back and do on our other one, is just one like straight shimmer down the middle. And now we come in, get rid of our lines, and say, hey, that's my bandage boundary. And we use our sketch and just go back over these lines. We'll kind of experiment with that. Sorry about the monk bump. The mic bump. Okay, like that. And we're just taking the color that already exists here and occluding the shadows because there is a change in surface. And same here. So, which leg wore it better? Yeah, definitely the second one. Let's come back here and kind of this general path that we already had. Let's go over it, but we can kind of keep that original, like distinct shape read. But this stuff is just a little less opacity there. And select. Oops. And cut through. Like that a lot better. Good. I'm glad. I had a thought that would work better. I'm glad it ended up being that way. Glad it wasn't worse than our first take on this leg, because I didn't know what to do otherwise. Okay. So we're rounding the corner here, believe it or not, guys. Like the rest of this is going to be little bits and tweaking. And apart from that, like the bulk of our work is done. We kind of get to bask in this little minutia of shading now. I think another thing that we're going to do here is extend sort of the shadow of some of these wraps just over a bit and let them be a little bit more generic looking. Okay. And actually, yeah, as hard as it's going to be, I just need a little bit of rim on some of these bandages. It's like one more layer of color difference between the front leg and the back, and it just shows us how round this is, because this is a cylinder of a leg, okay? And while we're at it, we'll do the same on our outer leg here, even though I think I'm going to add a bit of glowing rim light on some of these outer edges. Okay, boom. Boom, still got it. And yeah. Again, haven't ruled this out yet. We might include our multiply layer in just the tiniest way, like if it doesn't interfere too much. Like there's areas where it starts to interfere, but if it just gives us the tiniest bit of, like on the bandages right now, it's actually the ambient occlusion that it's adding through the line art a little bit by accident, and I like it. But we'll reserve judgment for after we've added more shadow. Okay, now with our skirt, same thing, where sort of the further it gets away from this inner like reverse spotlight shape, the more light is going to be hitting it along the edges here. And I'm cutting almost all of this space, but then I'm going to select this and add sort of some curves with the same soft brush back in, like that. Cut, cut, cut. Cut there, cut there. Nothing crazy. Just little creases and maybe like kind of a wave right here would be nice. Kind of alternate. Doesn't look much like cloth though. Not happy. That does. Just more individualized bits there. Okay. Some in here. Back and down. Yeah, so now what we can do is we'll select our bottom layer again. Come over top. How many more? Let's 1, 2, 3. 3 more layers we have. Not to say we can't merge a few more or take more drastic efforts. We just have that many. I'm going to drop like a black over everything. Okay. Watch what happens now. I hide my line layer and maybe black is too. Let's do a multiply instead. Let's do a red, a kind of a dusky, kind of pinkish orange like that. Bit of a sunsetty red. And come in and convert this to a multiply layer. Okay. And we will crank down the darkness a bit. Some of the saturation. Okay. Oh, we still haven't done the hair. Well, we'll get to it. Yeah, let's do the hair real quick. So, do we have? This is kind of our first time adding some of this definition. So we want little strands, right? We want waves of light in certain areas. It's not going to be just a big patch, right? It's going to hit strands and glance off them. Right there is kind of nice. We add some extra shine. I'm going to drop the opacity as I do this on my brush. And again, this is like local shadow. I know there's a term and I'm just kind of blanking as I'm doing this live, but believe me, there is a difference. Okay. And then we kind of sculpt this back. We know that the back of our skull hits around there, but there's so much hair that's kind of flowing back here. And not everything has to be light information. Some of it can just be kind of almost highlights, right? Individualized highlights and stuff. This is our light. We get more light as it's backing off the head. There. A bit rounding the corner here as it comes down to the ear. Make sure there's not too much shadow in front here. Instead, it's casting it backwards. And down toward the fringes. And remember, this is ratty hair. It ain't great. It's got little mats and things in it if we have time to put those in. Okay, so taking that, well, we can include our little light source guide. So turning our multiply layer back on, and let's see, we come in with even like a soft airbrush, but I'll keep it to our shader for now. And now we do like more broad lighting things, right? So we erase big chunks here and coming around the face and the eyes. See now, you know what? It's too much grain in that. We'll do the soft brush. Now notice, like, I'm using a soft airbrush right now, but I didn't use the soft airbrush on my main kind of sculpting out. This is just kind of atmospheric light. So this doesn't look the same way that a piece that's been rendered with an airbrush looks, like kind of too ambiguous, right? At least it shouldn't. So we're cutting here, and again, this is, this is at a certain opacity that we're going to drop down. This red, it's too intense right now. But so now we kind of localize some spots of light kind of on the upper torso, right? And come down around the edges, and definitely less down here, right? Maybe just a little bit of like a kneecap. And a little bit of toe and side of the foot. And if we come in here and wrap around this back foot, we add a little bit here. Okay, so it's just subtle atmosphere. That's a little too much. And some like back here. Kind of a translucency to the back skirt there. See how much like dimension we've already added there? Now we can come over our tools. Oh, I never rendered this hand actually, but it's not crazy important. I can actually do it here. Late. And it's also like a result of having multiple light, information centers. What am I trying to say? Multiple light informants. And I know there's just other better ways to say this stuff, man. Okay. Shooting that back burlap. But now we drop out that background color. You see how much more like dramatic looking that is? It's too much right now, but see the change in how much more it looks like she's staged in a real lighting situation, right? So we drop that down to like 40%, and that's better, right? So now we do that again. We select, we come in, and this time we go even darker with like a black. And this is going to be either like a contrast layer or just, again, just like a very harsh light range. It's not what I do all the time. It's not the most technically correct or skilled way, I guess, of rendering, but it is a way to kind of fast track some actual lighting conditions. Okay, things like this. And now, where is that? Let me just find it. Okay, so this wraps around here. And maybe we'll take it down across the top of this one here. Okay, so like extreme again. Kind of doing the opposite here of our red, but we drop that down, right? And we can, I think at this point we're more rendered than our Griffin. Let's see, like if we brought our line art back in, that's how that would look. At this point, because I'm so close to kind of the finished stage, this looks so messy that it's distracting me. Let's drop our line art down a bit, like that. Remember that idea? It's kind of cool. And kind of the main thing now, let's do some extra light, right? We've done a lot of shadow, but where is our light? So we've been in this orange range, coming down to blue for our light, kind of a daylight. Oh, what's happening here? I thought we were on a new layer. Right, okay. Sorry, I have to go lighter with our actual color. Okay, and very sparingly I'm adding a rim around this character. We're erasing away almost as soon as I've added it. It might not be as starkly blue. Eventually, like right now it's nice, kind of the same way that when I blocked in red originally, that's not the color I actually used, but it's just so strong of a difference that you can tell what's new. Okay, same here. Oh, and I think just one more lighting thing we should do is add some kind of specular shine and highlight to our instruments and fix that lens like we were saying we were gonna do. Okay. So this is also a very dramatic thing, right? And we're just going over the edges that are visible in the silhouette, mainly. Coming back and erasing some of it here. Might go a little more yellow or even greenish with the hue of this, or just brighter overall. Can come in here. See how it just kind of softens the edge too, along with the highlight. Okay, you also don't want it to be completely uniform. And as soon as you've done this kind of thing where it's edging in a little too much in some places and not in others, you've become inconsistent. Just a little here. Tiny, tiny bit. It's not going to be as strong in areas like that. Okay. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. Let's keep our selection. We will come back to our new rim, do a tiny bit of Gaussian blur just so that it kind of evens out along that edge without going too far, right? This is kind of what happens then. Whoop. About 12% there is good. Okay, let's bring back our background color because that kind of helps. And let's change this maybe more green, but definitely brighter. And with this, we can actually go to our add, which is also known as color dodge in Photoshop. And let's erase just a bit more. Now, we could do the same across the body with color dodge, just very subtly. That is it for our lines, or our layers. But we can, let's see. First of all, hold on. Let's, we kind of forgot our flute in our two multiply, or our two kind of darkness layers. We want it to come out a bit more. I will add specifically like some metal to this, but just needs some more visibility. Okay, yeah, it's just getting a little too dark in there. Okay, and a little bit here too, as well. Well. Okay, your second one looks like this. Nice. And it's kind of cool, like the more you layer like that and there's inconsistencies between these two, like, you know, I cut away on this sort of leg area on this black layer 12, but I just did the kneecap on the red on layer 11. That's like a little bit of light scattering difference, which is kind of cool. And I still want to get some dirt and soot on her. She's still a bit clean. So let's do this. I think I have at least our initial sketch in a different file because I have switched over first. Actually, I think we have this too, our original reference. Yeah, let's get rid of that too. So we've freed up two more layers. Let's come in and make an additional color dodge add layer where again we're just going to do the same kind of very, very subtle lighting. Whoa. Way too unsubtle there. Come down across the face some. We'll cut little pieces off of the eye. And down. This is just again, a bit of extra lighting, a little bit of glow. Doesn't always look good. Might reduce it in some places. We haven't, this is just a normal layer, so we haven't actually made it color dodge yet. Haven't made it. But again, like, you see me using color dodge and stuff. Color dodge is not always, you know, it can get easily overused. The reason why, you know, arguably it's working for me right now, or it doesn't look really washed out or cheap, is because of all the kind of legwork I did originally. So we're just in subtle amounts adding over top of this, which is sort of the point of these layer modes in the first place. Okay, so it looks like actual sunlight, right? Let's cut away a bit from the hair and reduce down like that. Just cutting some. And lower that just a bit. We have 2 additive layers in a row, so we can merge them together and things look pretty much the same. Again, freezes up another layer. Let's add, I'm going to come in with a bit of a copper color here, and with, let's see, some very textury, not this one. What's that brush that I like for this sort of, well, you know what would be nice is this sort of Hessian, like very crazy stuff. It's like, it's not realistic, but it kind of gives that craziness. Of like, not only the burlap texture, but like an unkemptness to it. Okay, so deselect, and this we will kind of burn down to dark, but we also will make it a contrast or overlay layer like this. And keep tweaking a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of nice, right? Let's make sure it's not overlapping materials in too many places. But that's already giving us a bit of texture, right? Without even like the dirt and stuff. So new layer. This time we're gonna go a little bit more smudgy. I think this cotton is nice. Yeah, this'll do for our dirt. So again, I'm starting kind of more vibrant and light as I add, just so it's like really obvious what I'm getting into here. I want to make sure that it's obvious that this is dirt and not like a facial blemish, which will be changed in a minute when I make this kind of into dirt. The forehead is a good place, right? Kind of, you know, rubbing your forehead of sweat and getting some soot and dirt on it. Same here. Looks a little like blood at the moment. We'll fix that. More sort of dirt and stuff as we get toward the fringes. Let's hold on. Let's get our selection back. Fringes here, and because this is again a new layer, let's cut across here so that it stays there. A little bit here and stays here. Is this looking okay? Like, I don't want it too uniform like it is there. Like, let's there. That's I don't want like little tiny uniform blotches. I want big stuff. Right? Like if I do this and then just come back and erase where it exceeds the boundary, and then kind of just decide or choose between, you know, which of these gets this blotch. This one gets this one. Okay, and now let's go crazy as we get down into, you know, the area where her feet are. And the dirt's kicking up all the time. Okay. Let's immediately make that not blood anymore. Darken it a bit. And change the hue a bit. Oh, like there, right? Yeah, cool. and we'll soften it a bit. It's just a normal layer at this point, but it's pretty good, pretty convincing dirt. A little bit more over here. Cool. The only thing that we have really left here is sort of the lighting only being as good as the context, which, you know, we could add a full background as long as it was consistent with the light. Again, the specularity of the metal is something I want to look into. We are done with layers. However, let me drop this dirt down below to here. No, let's not do that. Bring it back where it was. Tell you what, let's go back to this guy and merge these two together. The dirt and the... Oh, no. Oh, no. This is a little bit of a rough thing in Procreate, is sort of, you can't just merge layers as is. Let's actually bring our good little boy down and merged in with the base. That's our next thing. I mean, the other thing I could do is port each of these layers over into a new document. It works fine. I just, during a live thing, I'm not really prone to doing that. Okay, here's something I was just thinking about, is that our green on our telescope is not super visible right now. However, we could come in here and, using an existing green that we know of, kind of add a bit of character design and storytelling, right? The green of her spyglass here, the lens of it matches the lenses of her cat, or her griffin. So sort of the cat being her eyes kind of comes into as an idea. It's kind of cool. I'm going to hue shift a little just because of to make up for the kind of red that's overpowering it there. Yeah, see? And we're gonna kind of just manually shade here. I haven't done much of this because we're using a lot of adjustment layers and things, but you know, you can't beat, or you can, it just takes longer. Old-fashioned rendering like that. Cool. So now the spyglass has a bit more like visibility, right? Let's cut this so it's a bit smoother. Just want this little edge here. Okay, maybe like a line like that. That's dumb. I'm just trying to make like a cat eye, but it's not really. It's like almost imbuing it with power that it doesn't have. It's like a little more mundane of a character than that. Okay, let's come up and we have one additional layer. Let's go in with a just bit of white, maybe kind of blue, and specular up our dingy yet still metallic objects here. And same here. It's still a flute. Something I haven't really thought about is how she got her instruments. Talk so much about how she got that garment. And that's another thing too, is I think we could do some work with the garment to add some more detail, I think. Would be a vital thing. Just little specular dots there. And let's see. Let's do that. We'll bring this down. What's normal up here? Our grunge. We'll add it to our grunge, as funny as that is. This one is 947. This one's 28. This one we want to keep 100%. So what's this look like? Well, we'll manually come in and just erase our dirt down to a level where it looks good. This is our dirt, right? No, it's not. You genius. Dirt, man. Actually, manually erase it down to the level that we'd like for it to look like at 100%. So we can merge these all together. And then we can even add some variance there. Come together. No change in actual appearance, which is good. And let's add some detail. Let's go for some pale green here. I like the idea of adding just a tiny bit of green over top of her. Let's go with our oval sketch. And let's bring our reference back. No, we deleted it. Let me just bring it up on my screen over here. Nice. Okay. Could do like, yeah, little bits. Not here, but here. Coming down. Little C's. C-shaped bagels. The intensity, of course, we can adjust as we go. But I like the idea that we're selling that this is ornate, right? And we come over here, we actually get a little bit more because this was kind of murky on the other end. We see that this is kind of cascading down the other side. What else can we add? A little bit of ruffle, right? We can add, oh, that's something we didn't do. Let's adjust this currently to the right kind of blue. Yeah, let's go there. And come into our lace elements and just kind of add. Let me, real quick on my other screen, I'm going to look up lace. And yeah, cool patterns. Okay. How do we best? I think sort of dots. Systematically added dots is sort of the first step here. But like polka dot arrangement, not grid. So they're alternating in space. Okay. And then like a little bit more as you get to the edge. So we'll kind of make these little pangolin scales up and down, conforming to the edge. Space them a little wider. Something like that. And again, this is something we're going to drop down a bit. So let's, little squiggles coming off. No, what's going on here? There's a lot of radial patterns. So let's go like round, 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 round. Cool. Radial. And let's do the same over here. We'll kind of, we'll come down here. Cool. Yeah, this is like the final touches I really needed, was to differentiate between the garment and the rags a bit more. And hopefully it's not like too jarring. We can fix it up a bit if it is. Okay, nice. Do we even dare go down this front bit that's supposedly more, yeah, let's do it. Let's do just a little bit of a this? No. I don't know what that's suggesting. It's like zigzag light or lacing. But while we're here, maybe adding a little bit there and here. Bit of a shimmer to it. Like we were saying, satin that's saturated like this. Erase away some. Okay, cool. I like that. And maybe, so what can we do with the, let's see, contrast overlay maybe? And then a change in brightness to light or dark. Oh yeah. Woohoo, that's cool. Some of this is distracting. It's not great. Especially because we're fighting the multiply layer that's underneath. Let's go back to normal. It's practically white here. What's going on here? We've got, this is going like this. So why does this look so different? What have I done? Just needs to come down. About there. And we can't see them connect is sort of the main thing. You just see this one kind of overpowering into the edge of that one. That should help some. And do we bother to do this thing that we were thinking about? Let's bother. Now the only thing with the jaggedy, it kind of makes you think she did this on her own. Like stitching it up. All right. Overlay. Oh, it's gone. Let's, since it's overlay, we've got a second chance. Let's get rid of this, go dark, and curly Q, because overlay is the same, whether it's dark or light. It's so crazy, like the amount of detail that goes into the base of this kind of stuff, and then you just are adding the tiniest details over top. That's cool. I like how like it's the sort of the pink along the edge there. This is nice. This is not, it's not perfect. It's the sort of thing that like more hours would improve. Hey, one more time, it's me from the future in a time lapse, but kind of the present now because we're almost done. I ported what we had of this painting over into a new document and created a little bit of a background there, nothing too special, just something for her to kind of contrast against. And then I added some more rim light that was more substantial and kind of reflective onto the surface with the green and also the yellow there. After that, I created a new multiply layer for shadow that goes under the skirt some, and then some cast shadow under things like the ruffle. And that was just an extra little way to kind of pop that light and dark on the character. But honestly, it was just another, 10 or 20 minutes or so of work because all of that base work has already been done. So at this point, I'm happy with the character. It's not perfect, but it's good for what we're looking to accomplish here. Thank you so much for watching and keeping with me through this whole process. If you're not subscribed already, I'm making 2 new videos here on YouTube every week. And here's something that I've been forced to ask, just because of the way that YouTube has been lately. If you could click the bell notification button under this video next to the subscribe to let you know if you're really interested in seeing new videos when they're uploaded. It just notifies you that they've gone up. The subscription boxes on YouTube have been a little bit rough lately. Even when a new video goes up, it sometimes takes like 10 or 20 minutes for it to actually show up in people's subscription feeds. And honestly, I'm not sure it goes to 100% of people. I put a lot of work into these videos, and so it would be nice for at least a fraction of that, 60,000 subscribers who are here to actually see it. So that would be Really helpful if you would do that. And if you'd like to help even more, you can go to patreon.com/bageldenizen. I will be giving the art file for this character away there at the $5 tier. That's going to have every layer that we've seen throughout this entire process. And additionally, the Griffin Wretch. The Alley-Griffin Wretch, that's his name officially. You also get personalized video critiques from me at that $5 Novice Bard tier, and it really just goes a long way toward helping me, supporting me, make these videos happen. My username is BagelDenizen across Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. I'll probably be posting the final art for this character on Instagram a little bit later today, so you can head over there and check it out if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating.